Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Danny Tech coming at you with my first YouTube video. So I decided to make a series of videos in regards to the CCNA certification. There are some exam topics that I want to go over and help people that were just like me looking for good video tutorials on different ways to learn configurations of Cisco devices. So today's tutorial is going to be about SSH. SSH is a protocol which stands for Secure Shell. So this is a protocol that utilizes port 22 and this encrypts communication over the network. That way we're able to remote into devices using SSH in an encrypted manner. So without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get into it. This here is basically the configurations that we're gonna go over. When we are configuring SSH, we want to go ahead and take into account that there are a couple things that are required for SSH to work on these routers. First of all, the host name must be configured. Straight out of the box, when you get a Cisco device, it's going to have a generic host name. So it'll be either switch or router. So that has to be changed to whatever, I guess, your naming convention or standard is at your corporate job. Also, the DNS domain name also must be configured. That again, you'll probably get from your corporate job. And then also an enable password must be configured. That way when we make configuration changes or remote into the device, we're able to get into privilege mode. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into this lab that I made for us. It's a simple lab. It's nothing too crazy. It's very basic, but I think it's a decent lab for us to start learning how to configure SSH on devices. So here we can see that we have two separate LANs, LAN 1 and LAN 2, and it's divided by one router. And so we'll go ahead and act as if we are in a real world situation, and we're gonna go ahead and get a laptop. And with that laptop, to be able to configure these devices, we're going to need a console cable. So we'll connect that console cable to the RS-232 port and go into the console port of the router. And in a real world situation, you'll be using some sort of terminal emulator software. PuTTY is one of the more utilized ones. There's a bunch of different terminal emulators. So within Cisco Packet Tracer, we have what's shown here as the terminal. All the default configurations are good. We'll be able to use that and get into our router. So here, like I explained, what's going on here? Like I explained, once we get into a router, it's gonna have the default name here. It's just gonna be router. So for us to be able to get into privilege mode, we'll go ahead and hit enable. The enable command allows us to get into privilege mode. And from there, to be able to configure anything, we need to get into global configuration mode. That is done by typing the command configuration terminal, and it can be abbreviated, and that allows us to get into global configuration mode. And like I explained, what we want to go ahead and do is change the host name, configure a domain name, and an enable password. So we'll go ahead and do that. To configure in host name, once you're in global configuration mode, the command to do so is going to be hostname, and then you'll name it whatever your naming convention is. Ours is going to be simple, it's just going to be R1. So here we see that it changed from router to R1, so that's the first step. And then from there we're going to want to configure the DNS domain name. The command to do so is going to be IP space domain dash name, and we're just going to use the domain name. You can use whatever in a lab, doesn't really matter. We're going to use dannytech.com, and that allows us to set that. So for us to see that configuration in our running configuration, we'll go ahead and do a show run, which is short for show running configuration, and that'll allow us to see what we've done so far. So basically we have here the host name, which is R1. We press the spacebar to continue down. We have the IP domain name that we set, which is DannyTech, and that's basically it. That's all we have done on this router. So now we want to go ahead and set the interfaces for the different LANs, set up their IP address. So for LAN 1, we're going to be using the gate interface G000. To get into any to interface configuration mode, we're going to use the command interface. Let me write out the whole command interface, and then basically the port that you want to configure. So we'll hit enter, and that'll bring us into the interface configuration mode. And from there we're able to set an IP address with the command IP address, and then the IP address that you would like to set it to. And here we also have to add the subnet mask. This is going to be a /24. So now we've set the IP address on this interface, but the interface still remains down because when you start up a new router, by default it's in a down state. So to go ahead, it's in a shut state, I should say. So to bring that interface up, the command is no shutdown. So once we hit this, it should bring that interface up. You'll get a little log here stating that that interface is up, and you'll see in Cisco Packet Tracer it shows you basically that you're able to communicate down to these devices. All right, perfect. So from there we're going to exit, and we're going to go ahead and jump into the other side, or the other port, the other local area network that is connected to this router. So we'll go ahead and jump into that interface. We'll go to interface G001. Boom, we're in that interface now. And then from there we'll go ahead and set an IP address on that, which is going to be the address 192.168.2 2.1, and then this is going to be a /24 as well. And that subnet mask is going to be 255.255.255.0. All right, we'll go ahead and hit enter, and from there we're going to do the same thing and bring up that port by entering the no shut command, and that'll bring up that port. So from here we can go ahead and start the configuration of the SSH. Again, we're doing this to be able to manage these devices without having to physically get to be in front of these devices, if that makes any sense. Because if you're working in an environment where you have several different routers, you may not always have someone on site, but if you do have SSH set up, you're able to manage or reach these devices and do whatever configuration is needed. So that's basically the reason for this this configuration. So now we'll go ahead and set or generate the crypto keys to basically enable SSH on this device. So we'll go ahead, that command is going to be crypto key generate RSA, and once we hit enter, it's going to ask us how many bits we would like to use. We're going to go ahead and use 1024. Hit enter. It'll start to build the configuration, and boom, we have SSH enabled on this device. Now when we're using SSH, what we're not getting to these ports where we've set the addresses. So what I take that back. When we're SSHing into this device, we're using the port, basically a VTY line is what it's called, virtual teletype line. So you could think of this as the same thing as us consoling into the physical device, but this is basically virtually, and that's why they call it a virtual teletype. So for us to be able to configure that port or that line, the command to get to there, it's going to be line VTY and then 0 space 4. That gets us into the line configuration mode. From there, what we're going to do is set our login to a local database, basically login, and we do that by utilizing the command login local. So basically login local is going to look within its configuration and see if it has a username and password, which we haven't set up yet, which is the next thing that we're gonna go ahead and do after we finish this line configuration. So we've set the login to be local. The next thing we're gonna go ahead and do is set that line to only accept SSH. So there's two different ways for us to remotely access a device. It's going to be Telnet and SSH. And every environment is going to be different. You want to use SSH because it's the more secure form of communicating over the network. Telnet is not it's a non-encrypted way of connecting. So basically it sends all of the information in clear text. Again, for security reasons, that's a bad thing, because if someone were to intercept that traffic, they're able to read all of that traffic in clear text. So we want to go ahead and use SSH because it encrypts the communication. That's basically the reason for that. So to be able to set this line to only accept SSH incoming communication, it's going to be transport input SSH. Really simple. Boom. We'll go ahead and exit out of there. And we're going to go ahead and create that username and password that we're going to use to log into this device. So we'll go ahead and use username. Username is going to be Danny. And we're going to go ahead and set the password to CCNA. Boom. Simple enough. And we'll go ahead and move on to the next devices. So we'll go ahead and console in to this device now. So now we are in switch 1. We're gonna do all of the same configuration that we did on the router. We're gonna go ahead and do that on the switch now. So we're gonna go ahead and change the host name. We're gonna set IP domain name, and so switches deal with layer 2 communication, which does not deal basically with IP addresses. IP addresses are on the layer 3 of the OSI model. Layer 2 basically deals with MAC addresses. But on the switch, we're able to set a management IP address basically for us to be able to remote into this device. And most of the time, in my experience, when we do that, we do it on a VLAN that we're not not a default VLAN, but in this case we're going to go ahead and use the default VLAN, which is VLAN 1, just to make this a shorter video and a more concise video. So we'll go ahead and enable, and we'll go ahead and change, go to config, conf t, configuration terminal, change the host name, which is host name SW1. That changes the host name to switch 1 SW1, and then we want to go ahead and set the IP domain name to anytech.com. And now we want to go ahead and set that management IP address on that VLAN, the default VLAN 1. So we'll go ahead and get into VLAN 1. So we treat that VLAN just as if it's an interface. So to get into that VLAN, we'll use the command interface VLAN 1, and that gets us into basically that interface. So we'll set that IP address with the command IP address, and then the IP address that we're gonna go ahead and set to, this is LAN 1, so it's gonna be 253, and then subnet mask 255.255.0, and like any other interface that we want to use, we're gonna go ahead and no shut that interface to bring that interface up, and boom, that interface is up now. And one more command that we need to input is going to be the IP default gateway. Default gateway. So what this allows us to do is for that switch to be able to basically refer back to its default gateway if it's receiving frames from another LAN or another network, it knows how to respond back to it. So we'll go ahead and set that to our gig 000 interface, which is 192.168.1.1, and boom, we're good to go with that. And now we'll go ahead and enable SSH. We'll enable the crypto keys. Crypto key generate RSA. It's gonna ask us how many bits. 1024. Go ahead and hit that, and boom, we have SSH enabled. Pretty straightforward. Once you know basically the requirements, you start to to understand what you need to configure SSH basically. So now we need to configure the virtual the VTY lines. So we'll go ahead and get into that by issuing the command VTY 0 to 15. Boom. That basically hits all of the ports or the lines that we're able to remote into. So we're currently in the VTY line. There, we'll go ahead and issue the login local again. And also the transport input. Input SSH. Alright. So now we'll go ahead and go back, exit. Oh, we also need to set up the username. Do that. Danny. Password. It's gonna be CCNA. And boom, we're good to go with that. So we'll go ahead and set the IP addresses on these desktops. So we have, this is going to be a .10, so it's going to be 192.168.1. .1.10. Subnet mask is going to be correct, and the default gateway is going to be the gig 000 interface, which is 192.168.1.1, and that sets that statically. So basically, when you're configuring IP addresses, there's two different ways that you can go about doing so. You can do it statically, how we're doing, which is not very scalable, and it's very tedious if you are in an environment where there's hundreds of computers. You can only imagine. So another way to do so is using a DHCP server, which DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Protocol, Configuration Protocol. This allows a server, or like you can have an external server, a Microsoft server, or you can do it within Cisco's routers. Have them basically hand out IP addresses and configuration basically. So it'll hand out the IP address, it'll tell it that device the subnet mask, it'll tell it its default gateway and the DNS server that it wants it to use. And this makes it way easier for and way more scalable for you to deploy different machines out in the field without having to manually do this tedious task basically of setting it statically. But for the sake of this lab, it's only a couple computers and we can knock this out pretty fast. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get into we'll get into this other switch. Terminal in. So we have all default configurations basically. So we'll hit enable, conf t, and we'll change the host name to SW2. The IP domain name is going to be DannyTech.com, and so we'll go ahead and also set a management IP address on VLAN 1. That way we're able to manage this switch. Zero. This is going to be a /24. Oh, I forgot the IP address. Command. Boom. So anytime you see this log here, this log message here, is basically a misconfiguration or an invalid input, as it obviously states there. That means you either type something wrong, you mistyped, or miss part of a command. So we'll go ahead and continue. So now we want to go ahead and turn up that that interface, that VLAN interface. So now you can complete basically a command by hitting the tab button. It'll basically finish the command that you basically shorten. It'll complete the command. It won't run the command until you hit enter. But if you hit tab, it'll basically write out the rest of the command if it has enough letters to where it's not the same as another. It wouldn't be the same basically spelling as another command that is similar. Alright, so we set that up. Now we need to set up the SSH, the crypto keys. So we'll go ahead and hit we'll back out of the interface config mode, and we'll go back into basically global configuration mode. And then here we'll go ahead and generate the crypto keys with the crypto key generate RSA command 1024. Hit enter, and it shows that SSH has been enabled. And the same thing, we're going to go ahead and get into those virtual teletype lines, that VTY line 0 to 15. We are currently in the line configuration mode. We want to be able to log in locally and we do so with applying that login local command, and then we want to only use SSH as our transport input. SSH. So the different commands for that, again, how I explained earlier, you can use basically SSH and telnet, or both. So if you use the question mark, it'll tell you what commands you can use. You can use all protocols, no protocols, SSH, or telnet. So all protocols will basically be both SSH and telnet, but we only want to use SSH. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and set up a username and password on here. CCNA. All right, so we are basically all set and good to go. Now, there is one thing that I did not configure, and I did that on purpose because I wanted you to see the error message that we receive when we don't go ahead and configure that. Oh, I'm missing one more thing. I didn't set the default gateway. Okay. All right. So basically, what I'm gonna do is act as if I'm in this office here, this LAN, this local area network, and I'm gonna go ahead and connect to this switch here and assign myself an IP address within that subnet, and I'm gonna go ahead and assign myself 192.168.2.25. That's my default gateway. Okay, perfect. So from here, I should be able to ping all the way over here, because again, these LANs are connected. I don't have to set a static route to be able to communicate. So I should be able to communicate, if everything was done correctly, over to this computer, which is this one here, PC1. And there it is. We're getting replies. Now, another thing I want to go ahead and test is to see if I'm able to reach that that management VLAN IP address, which is going to be this IP address, 192.168.1.253. So I should be able to reach that. If I'm able to reach that, then in theory I should be able to SSH into this device. Okay. Perfect. I'm able to ping it, right? All right. Now, to be able to SSH into a device from CMD command line, basically the command is going to be SSH-L and the username and the IP address of the device, basically. So we're gonna go ahead and go into that switch over there, and boom, voila, it works, right? So it's gonna ask me for the password that we set up. Password is going to be CCNA. Oh, look at that, I'm in. But there was one thing that I did mention in the beginning of the video that we didn't set up, which is basically I'm able to log into that device, but I'm not able to get any further because I didn't set up a enable password. So it basically gets me into a brick wall, basically. I'm not able to get any further than that. So now what happens? We have to go ahead and go back and set up an enable password to these devices. So to do so, I'm not going to connect the console cable. I'll just go into the CLI here and go ahead and set up an enable password. So we're going to go ahead and do configure conft or configuration terminal, configure terminal, I'm sorry. And from there, to set up an enable password, we'll hit the command enable password. Pretty simple. And we're going to set that enable password to Cisco. Boom, I'm able to exit. And we'll go ahead and try that again. Oh. So I'll go ahead and end this this connection and try it again. Boom. CCNA. I'm in. I want to go ahead and get into privilege mode. Hit enable, and now it asks me for a password. Before it said password not set. Now it's asking me for a password. I hit Cisco, and I'm in. And we can do the running config, and you'll see the enable password is here. Everything that we've configured from the beginning is here. The IP address on that management VLAN, default gateway, and the transport input SSH. So we would have to go back and do that on all the other devices. But again, I showed you that, you know, it works. And basically, if I connect that laptop on this side, it'll give me the same. It'll give me the same results. So yeah, this was a simple lab. Hopefully you guys learned a lot. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please go ahead and leave it down in the video below, or below this video in the comments. I would greatly appreciate it, and you know, that way I'll know what I can improve on or what I can make videos on. So I am thinking of making a VLAN video basically, so look out for that coming soon. And yeah, thank you for watching this video if you got this far. Again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you want to download this lab, I can send it to you, or you can just copy the configurations that we have set here. Go ahead and pause the video and you can see the devices here and their IP addresses and subnet masks. And yeah, we can go from there. And again, thank you for watching the channel. Thank you for watching this video, and hopefully you hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more videos like this. Thank you.